David Hirst joins Keith Hackett and myself on the Ref Show this week, quite timely actually. There's Mr. Sterling going for £49 million to Manchester City. That's over 10 times what Manchester United once bid Sheffield Wednesday for you, sir. So,
very much so.
I'd be interested to hear your view on that. Managers and coaches, be warned, to get serious for a moment. There's trouble ahead on a touchline near you in this coming season. We'll be debating whether that's over the top by the PGMOL or whether this really is a problem that needs clearing up, the behaviour issue. Should there be a sliding scale of pay for referees, as there clearly is, for players? That also is a topic for Keith to expand on. And female officials, why are there only 5 of them in the English professional game? That's for the second half. Let's start with the touchline, because your intelligence, Keith, suggests that there's going to be a major crackdown in this area.
Well, at the moment, the PGMOL, as I understand it, are organising and running regional meetings, calling referees in, which in itself is a bit of a surprise, because it's only a few weeks ago that they had the annual conference. And this is centering around, or majoring around, the technical area. Frankly, you're always going to get outbursts in the technical area. That's part of the passion of the game, you know. And we talk about irresponsible behaviour being the trigger point for a manager to be sent to the stands. I think the PGMOL personally have got bigger issues to deal with out on the field of play, rather than actually spend an enormous amount of time talking about the technical area.
Well, come on to those issues in your view, where you think the money should be going, and the briefing before the season. What do you think, David? Do you think there's a problem in terms of behaviour on the touchline? I mean, we had instances last season, quite a few, didn't we?
There has been incidents, but I mean, as far as it being a major problem, I don't think it is a major problem. What I think they're going to do is going to make boundaries that people will overstep. You know, so we used to be on the touchline back in the day. Then we bring the box into play, and they still come out of that. So where does it end? And I think it's looking at something that's not really a major problem. That's to be cleared up by the managers themselves and the clubs themselves.
We saw Alan Pardew involved in a high-profile incident, which Nigel Pearson as well. And surely, in support, shall we say, and devil's advocate of this measure by PGMOL, the verbal bashing that fourth officials get surely is unwarranted. They've got better things to do, haven't they?
Well, certainly the role of the fourth official has changed. You know, they've got to look at the game, keep an eye on the game, and act as a referee, able to support the referee or advise him.
Which they can't do if they've got coaches in their ear all the time.
No, they can't. But see, my concern was that when the law was introduced way back, and we started managing that process. If you remember, you had a manager go to the touchline. He was followed by the referee or the fourth official, told straight to get back. So there was this constant sort of backwards and forwards. And in a sense, there was a period when there was quite, I felt, aggressive attitude from the fourth official, treating the manager with disrespect. And therefore, we had meetings with the LMA, initially with John Barnwell, then with Richard Bevan, involving John Duncan as well, to get over the problem by saying, look, how best can we manage this? So this was about developing a working relationship. And like I've already said, you know, you can have a good, positive working relationship where someone can do his job, where the law has to be that only one can go to the front and do his job and those sort of things. All those things can be managed and managed effectively without confrontation. Because if we get back to confrontation and we get the guy, you know, we're already faced with a problem that there are inexperienced referees operating as fourth officials at Premier League games.
Yeah.
And therefore there's already that risk of an explosion. If you talk about, you know, nobody likes incidents that are damaging to the image of our game across the world, and we want to avoid those. But at the end of the day, those can be avoided, and however, if they do take place, then ship them to the stand.
Well, for effect, with any crackdown, there's usually an early season demonstration of what we're going to do. So managers and coaches are walking a tightrope, aren't they, early on in the season?
And to be fair, rightly so, if you look at it that way. You know, like Keith says, you know, it's got to be dealt with and into the stand rather than, you know, building boxes and setting boundaries.
Yeah. Where do you think that the emphasis should be then, Keith? Because clearly you think this is an overreaction. So where should PGMOL be looking in terms of talking to managers before the season?
Well, I think that what PGMOL should be doing, first of all, is getting their own house in order. They need to understand clearly that they've got some referees on their books that don't understand handball. Look at the number of errors that we saw. We've got some who have issues and are not detecting simulation for whatever reason. I had conversations with managers away from the green bit to say, look, we're exposed to this problem, we're going to get it wrong, we need your help. So it's about enlisting the assistance of both the PFA and the LMA to try and outlaw simulation. Never get rid of it, but you want improved detection.
So you need the LMA's help. Is this going to antagonise the LMA, the fact that their members are going to be clamped down on the touchline?
Well, it doesn't lead to working relationships, in my opinion. If all of a sudden, you know, clampdowns, are a thing of the past. There's a working relationship between the LMA and the PFA and the PGMOL that I would like to think is continuing in a very positive vein. You know, it's assisted by Richard Scudamore, the CEO, who is keen that the image of the game is seen in the right light. And if there are areas of exposure that he's concerned about, he'll bring his influence to bear. So all these people can be having an effect to avoid those things that occur on a Saturday afternoon when the temperature's hot and everybody's losing it.
Where would your emphasis be, David? What problem areas in the game?
Well, I think, again, Keith's spot on, but just on the simulation situation, you know, it's there. You know, we look at the manager's frustration when it goes against him, but he doesn't come out shouting and bawling when it's for him.
Right.
You know, so that's the big problem we've got with simulation. I mean, I think you're moving on, again, we've spoke about it on the show before, it's the hustle and bustle in the penalty area, you know, from corners, free kicks and the like, where we know clearly it should be a penalty, not given, and letting things go, really, and it's causing major problems.
The handling and holding.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Which the women perfectly demonstrated in the Women's World Cup. You don't have to do it. It's a better game if you don't.
You know, I mean, football is a game of skill, and therefore, as an organisation, you should be promoting the skill factor. Sometimes I think that there's this area where, as David has said, holding, grappling is a spoiling tactic that spoils the game. It spoils the enjoyment. And it makes the referee at times look a complete idiot because we all see it and nothing's given.
This is the unfortunate part of football. It's about winning. You know, and it has been when the most skillful player is out on the park, and we've all heard the statement of the manager, you know, make sure he's out of the game. It's the same thing, you know, the simulation and the dragging and everything.
Right, well, just a bit of politics, just to round off this. It's not going to get too heavy, by the way, just to round off this half before we come on to more interesting things in the second half. A little known or a little spotted item in a national newspaper. Jonathan Hall, a director of PGMOL, one of 3 senior executives at the FA who's lost his job. Greg Dyke, I think, looking to cut costs in certain areas. Is that going to have an effect on the PGMOL in any way, on Mike Riley and his operation?
Well, I think it exposes Riley to the fact that he's had a director in Jonathan Hall, lawyer by profession, that I think has been very supportive of Mike Riley.
Within the FA?
Well, I think within the FA and within the context of the PGMOL. You know, I mean, look, let's make it clear. I think if I'd have been in the role and these things that have happened in the last 2 years, the demise of refereeing standards, I would have been out of a job. The reality is he's stuck there and he's in the job and he's firmly in position. So the board of directors have supported him. And Jonathan Hall must have supported Riley and seen him being as a good guy.
And whoever replaces him, if there is a direct replacement, might not be quite so supportive or might ask some questions. Is that your
Well, I think that, I expected John Williams, who took over from Peter Hurd as the chairman, to have that sort of impact. I don't think he's had that impact at all in relation to it. And you know, there seems to be a malaise that the standards are still okay when they clearly are not. You know, we've got a reduced panel in the international scene. We've got little sort of representation out in Canada. We'll talk about the women referees. You know, so I think generally the standard is unacceptable and things need to be done about it.
Okay, well, second part of the show, we'll go on to the subject of female officials, and goodness me, if the standards are as low as you feel they are, we need more, not less, and we've only got a few. And we'll also talk about, are we properly paying referees? Should some referees get a lot more than others? So join us for all of that.